2005 by
This
9
meeting is
individuals.
being recorded.
The Ligas class lawsuit was filed in 2005 by 9 individuals. It was representing over 6,000 individuals living in intermediate care facilities for developmental disabilities. It also included those at risk at home. And this is very important that you understand about the Ligas consent decree. It did not include in 3,000 individuals who were in state operated developmental centers. Okay? So, the two classes were people living in an intermediate care facility and individuals who were over 18 years of age living at home who wanted to live in the community. It did not include state operated developmental centers. And in 2006, after the lawsuit was filed in 2005, class certification was granted. Now, let me give you the definition of individuals of the two categories for the Ligas consent decree. The individual must be 18 or older with a developmental disability and Medicaid eligible. That is important because that is what will pay for the community services. That individual, the second class, is an individual living in an intermediate care facility for developmental disabilities with 9 or more individuals and seeking services. And the state must have a record of that request for community service. Okay? So we want to be clear. The two classes, people in ICFDDs and individuals 18 or older, Medicaid eligible, not receiving services. Now, remember I stated that the lawsuit was filed in 2005. And as with anything, people have different opinions. There was an initial opposition to the first settlement because the lawsuit, as it was originally done, it was for everyone to be evaluated, whether they wanted to or not. Remember, everyone matters. Everyone has a choice. So let's keep that in mind. So there was some objection to the decertification. And the interveners added that they supported people being in institutions, in this instant, the private ICFDDs. Okay? So the initial opposition caused it to be decertified because there was an objection. So after talking, the interveners, remember the three parties, the plaintiffs, the defendants, the interveners, they talked about what's going on. They came to an agreement that individuals living in the ICFDDs had to opt in. They were not automatically a part of the Ligas consent decree lawsuit. Those who did not want to be and were happy with living in the ICFDDs, it was their right. So the agreement was that if the people in the ICFDDs wanted to move into the community, they had to opt in. And what opt in means that they had to notify the ISC that they wanted to move to the community. And remember, the consent decree is a federal court order. So what has been the impact of the Ligas consent decree, and why are we talking about it? Well, a couple of things, and it's not all, just a high over level overview. So we needed to build community capacity, address service shortages, budgets must support services, enable transitions with no legislative contingency, meaning that the impact of this is that the state had to have a budget to provide support and offer services for these individuals and not be dependent upon legislative contingency. So individuals, as I stated, who were in the ICFDDs, the residents, and they were happy with that, they could remain there. And if they didn't want to remain there, they could opt in. But the state must support them all. And one of the other terms of the Ligas consent decree was that 6,000 individuals were eligible for transition for the first 6 years with no issues, being able to transition out of the ICFDDs into community. Those individuals living at home, 18 and older, not receiving supports with a developmental disability and Medicaid eligible, were to be served within the first 6 years. They had the options of services under home-based support or community integrated living arrangement options. And after those 6 years, there was something called reasonable pace, where at least 630 individuals had to be selected from ponds to be in compliance with the Ligas consent decree. Now, individuals who were in crises, individuals who was abused, neglected, at risk of being homeless, care death, the inability to be served, dangerous behavior. Per the consent decree, there was no cap on the number of people that could be served that were in crisis, and that the state was supposed to be able to respond within 24 to 72 hours. So there was no limit on that, and that was not included in that 630 reasonable pace of people being selected from ponds. Compliance issues. So we have the Ligas consent decree. We have all of these great things that we have an opportunity to do. Remember, I told you about the court monitors and their ability to monitor the services. Well, in 2017, a motion was filed because the state was found to be out of compliance, meaning that they were not honoring the requirements of the Ligas consent decree. And some of the simple concerns were low wages, turnover, and in some cases, neglect. So the state's response to being out of compliance, they hired Guidehouse to do a rate study to see what they could do to increase the wages. One of the concerns around that was the wages were increased, but they were delayed. The Independent Service Coordination Agency, which is the gateway to service in the state of Illinois, and there are 8 of those geographically located, it was a concern that they were underfunded, and the state was still non-compliant. And so this again was a result of the motion filed in 2017, finding the state out of compliance with the requirement of the Ligas consent decree. So let me tell you why this is important to me and the program that I support, the Family Advocate Program. Our program was created in 2014 because I was then the director of the Family Support Network, but I received so many calls from families stating that they did not understand the Ligas consent decree, that they felt that their rights were being violated, and they needed to know who to talk to. So we at the ARC started advocacy. We worked with Tony Records and then the DD director at that time, who was Kevin Casey, to say, hey, the consent decree requires that there's outreach done to individuals that are selected from ponds. And we want to be able to do that outreach so that when these individuals are selected from ponds, we can communicate with them, share with them what their options are, make sure that they know what their rights are, and make sure that they know how to connect with their Independent Service Coordination Agency, which is the gateway to service in the state of Illinois. So some of the progress and positive outcomes that we know and that have happened since the Ligas consent decree is that many of the class members are thriving in community settings, and that's a great thing. The state has shifted towards community-based systems. The PONS wait list is now 4 to 5 years, and in the consent decree, individuals had to be served within 60 months. There's been improvement in the person-centered planning and state funding monitoring of outcomes. Again, that important role of the court monitor. So these are some positive things, and we must learn to appreciate the small wins as we're moving forward. And so I'm excited to share that part with you. Some additional improvements. The state provided a $15,000 SODC, State Operated Developmental Center transition incentive for providers to work with individuals coming out of SODCs into the community. As you know, we were individuals in the community. We were able to get a 5% increase in the home-based funding, and that was really a wonderful thing that we had advocated for, because with the Guidehouse rate study, the increases in services on the program side, where the rate is set by the state, was not equaling to the funding in home base. And so with that 5% increase, that helped move the scale up a little bit closer. There was some independent service coordination funding, and a real important improvement that happened within PONS, which is the database where individuals are selected to apply for waiver services. It's a two-part process. Usually there's an early notification letter that's sent out in the last month of the year. For example, December 2025, there were 814 letters sent out to individuals letting them know that based on the information that the state had, that they anticipated that they would be selected to apply for waiver services in July of 2026, pending the approval of the state budget. Well, why is that important? That's important because individuals who receive that PON selection letters, let's say they are receiving services currently through the DOORS waiver, and that is working for them, and they don't want to move into the Division of Developmental Disability waiver. Well, because of this improvement by the state, the letter that you receive, your invitation to apply, does not expire. Let me repeat that. It does not expire. And that is a great thing, because if you're a self-advocate or and you are happy with the services that you're receiving through DOORS, and you want to continue to live at home or whatever the case is, you can do that as long as you stay in connection with your independent service coordination agency. And then let's say 5 years from now, you no longer want to receive services through the DOORS waiver, you can connect with your independent service coordination agency, and then they can start the process of you applying for the developmental disability waiver. And by the letters not expiring, it eliminated the hold status. So prior to that, if an individual was selected and they weren't ready to move into services for whatever reason, they had 2 years that they could be on hold. But with the letters not expiring, there's no end date on that. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So let me talk about some ongoing concerns. Unfortunately, there are still some concerns that the court monitor has shared with us in terms of community placement. They're larger than individuals' desire. They may be too far from families, limited employment, day activity options, few supports for hard to serve individuals. And so when that term is used, it is usually talking about individuals who may have dual diagnosis, some behavior, and mental health issues or whatever. And so that's a concern, because individuals should be able to receive supports. And so there's still a large number of individuals still in private intermediate care facilities. But again, because of the letters not expiring, if they decide, later on that they want to move out, they have that opportunity. That's a good thing. There's still over 1,600 individuals in SODCs. Now that number, give or take, but I do have some references with some more updated information that you can refer to. There's been delays in crisis service, work shortages due to low pay. And in the information shared, contingent reliance on SODCs and crises. And the state filed a motion to vacate the decree despite noncompliance. So the noncompliance was ruled by the court, okay? And so for some of the things that I just listed. And so the state filed a motion. Now, let me tell you what happened as a result of that. Let me give you a legal update. The appeal is ongoing. okay? Because the state felt that they had met their requirements under the Ligas consent decree, but the plaintiffs did not agree. So the appeal is going on. The issues are because they're not in compliance with the degree. Ligas class members have a right to community service. The court said that the state had not met, you know, the requirements of the Ligas consent decree. So right now, the Seventh Circuit Court is reviewing that to see if that will stand. So again, that's the legal update regarding that. But I was in a meeting today, and I did not have a chance to update the slide reel because we had a Ligas advisory meeting today. And Lorraine Reagan, who is the court monitor, she gave us an update. And so I want to share that with you. What she shared with us today was that the implementation plan for 2025 that was submitted by the state had been fully agreed by all parties. And so the only issue that there was a concern about was the disagreement was whether the state can continue to admit Ligas class members to state operated developmental centers if they're selected and there's no placement. And so the judge decided on May the 13th that such admissions are not permitted. Okay. Now, don't get too excited because there's a B part to this. Okay. Because after our court monitor Lorraine Reagan shared that, she so eloquently invited the representative from Equip for Equality to comment on what their understanding was of that. And so the representative from Equip for Equality stated that he wanted to clarify that that did not necessarily mean that admissions cannot occur. But they was not as concerned because it's not like it's a big, large amount of people that are just automatically being transferred to the state operated developmental centers. But what they wanted to do was if it was a situation where all options had been tried and there was no options, and this was the last alternative, that under some circumstances, if the guardian opposed it, if it was a court order, then, or if it was as an alternate to becoming homeless, those were three conditions that could be a reason why they could be placed in the institution. But what the court monitor stated was that this is ongoing, and the next court date is going to be July the 8th at 10:45 a.m. Now, the reason this is important is I asked the question as a result of this decision on May the 13th, can the state continue to place people in SODCs? And so the answer that I received was, remember, the Ligas consent decree is a court order. So this ruling does not change the terms of the consent decree, okay? That if that's the last option, they can do that. However, they have to get some reports to the court monitor to give them more data on, what the options were. Why aren't you able to serve in the community? And so to summarize what she said today is that although the judge on May the 13th said that it is out of compliance with the consent decree to be placing people in state operated developmental centers, that and Equip for Equality was in agreement that it is an ongoing decision to determine once more data is provided and once a more accurate list of Ligas class members in the state operated developmental centers are provided, they will be able to come to a better understanding. But right now, the Ligas consent decree is still in order because it's a court order. And the fact that if it is a last option, there's no other placement to keep the individual from becoming homeless or the guardian issue or whatever, they may be able to do that. But what was assuring for me was that it's not happening just randomly. And I know some of you may say if it's one person, that's one person too many. But that's why you're an advocate. That's why we're an advocate. And that's why we work together. And so, as I stated, the next court update is scheduled for July the 8th, 2026 at 10:45. Now, because I gave you um, an overview of the Ligas consent decree, and for the sake of time, and I don't want to overwhelm you with so much information at one time, I have some resources for you, Equip for Equality, where you can click on this link and you're more than happy to share the PowerPoint. And then I also included for you the Ligas Consent Decree Updated presented by Lorraine Reagan, the Ligas Court Monitor, a PowerPoint that she shared at our 14th informational seminar, along with the 2025 Ligas Filing and Status Update and the 2025 Ligas SODC Report. So what I want you to take away from what I said today is that the Ligas consent decree was a lawsuit filed in 2005. Uh, and it was the brainchild of Stanley Ligas, who was a self-advocate with 8 other individuals who was living in an ICFDD who wanted the same rights that you and I take for granted. And I want you to understand the power of advocacy and being consistency and working together and how he was consistent in that. And although the first attempt didn't work, they did not give up. They continued to work together, and in 2011, the consent decree was approved. And as a result of that, some individuals are living in the community. They're doing well. We're making improvement. I'm here to talk to you this evening about some of the good things that are happening. But make no mistake, we still have work to do. And that work can be done and led by self advocates. And what is it that you say? Nothing about us without us. And so I am so grateful to you for sharing some of your time with me this evening and allowing me to just give you a little overview of the Ligas consent decree. And if you need to get more information, you can reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to share additional information and resources so that you can learn everything that you can about the Ligas consent decree. So I thank you for this opportunity, and I hope that it has been helpful and you have a better understanding of the power of self-advocates and the power of being committed and working together and what the Ligas consent decree has done. Although we may not have everything we want, but we're going to keep on rolling and we're going to roll together. Okay, so thank you for that opportunity. And if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shirley. That was a really excellent presentation, and I'm sure I speak for everyone here that we're really thankful for you making time to explain the Ligas consent decree, not just to explain it, but to make sure that the information is presented in plain language, that it's easy for our self-advocates to understand, because even though obviously individuals with IDD are the ones who are the most directly affected by the Ligas consent decree, I found that there's not a lot of plain language information about the consent decree, how it functions, and how it affects individuals with disabilities' daily lives. So I really, really appreciate this. And as I mentioned in the chat, you guys, I forgot to record the beginning of the meeting, but Director Shirley was so considerate to allow me to share the presentation out. So I will be sharing out the partial recording along with the presentation slides as well. We have about 10-ish minutes. So if you guys have any questions for Director Perez, even if you just want to clarify something and make sure that you fully understand, please go ahead, Lakeisha.
Yes, so thank you, Director Perez, for that wonderful presentation. It really gave me some insight, more insight on the Ligas consent decree. However, there was a couple of questions that I had, and I'll just run them one by one. I'll start with a question, and if you could answer. And I also want to give somebody else an opportunity. Um, So I'll go quickly. So the first question that I had was at the beginning of your presentation. As I understood, the Ligas consent decree represented individuals in IFC DDs and but excluded SODCs. But I think at the end of the presentation, we talked about SODCs being included. So I guess that's
No,
my question. Does it include
no.
SODCs or not?
Let me be very clear. As I stated in the beginning, the Ligas consent decree had two categories: individuals living in intermediate care facilities with developmental disabilities, and individuals who are 18 or older and living at home. The reason SODCs are being talked about is because the whole purpose of the consent decree is community. Okay, SODC is not a community. So while the complaint was filed because the state was allowing individuals to be placed in state operated developmental centers, that is not a community. That's out of compliance with the decree. So what is going on now is these Ligas class members are in the SODCs and they should not be. So that is that.
Thank
Great
you for
question.
tying that together for me. I appreciate that. The next question was, what is the wait time for, I think the 4 to 5 years you gave was the PUNS wait list. Is that correct? So what is the wait time been like for those that are on the Ligas list to get into community living? Have we seen those transitions since 2011?
Okay, there's not a Ligas list to get into the community. The way the process works, Ponds is a database.
Okay.
That database has a list of the individuals that are on that list to be selected to apply for community service. So, per the consent decree, individuals should be selected within 60 months, okay, to apply for services. So that means that they should be selected. So once that individual is selected to apply for services, that starts a whole nother process. So what happens is your independent service coordination agency, which is your gateway to service, that individual works with that ISC. They go through what's called a pre-admission screening process. It's kind of like, when you go to buy a home and you get these pre-approvals for a home, and you may get a pre-approval for like $500,000, right? So when you actually get ready to go buy the property, they're like, okay, show me the money. They want to see your receipts. They want to know how much money you're making. They want to see your check stubs. So when you go with the pre-admission screening, which is your independent service coordination agency, they have to confirm that you meet the eligibility for the developmental disability waiver, because that's what you're applying for. It's no longer about the disability now. It's about, do you meet the requirement for the developmental disability? And so that time, it's kind of, it varies. And that's one of the things that the court monitor wants to get more information on. And in fact, the division recently released an update to the Independent Service Coordination Agency's pass manual with a process to do more tracking so that they can actually address that data. How long is it actually taken from when the individual is selected to they actually get into service? So that's one of the things that we need more data on.
Okay.
Another great question.
Thank you so much for your time. I see some other raised hands. I'll yield there, and throw it back to Rio I was going to say Miss Perez, but you're both Miss Perez. I'll throw it back to Rio to select someone else. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
You are so welcome, and thank you for those great questions.
Yeah, really excellent questions, Lakeisha. Thank you. Barb, you were up next.
Yeah, Shirley, it's nice to talk with you. And if this goes beyond what we can do here, I'm happy to reach out to you by email. But I have a friend who is in a nursing home, and she does have developmental disabilities, but it's taking forever for her to get out of the nursing home because she's waiting on various accessible apartments in Southern Illinois, and there just isn't that much. She's been stuck there for 10 years. She is a person with developmental disabilities, but she's been told that she isn't eligible for the PUNS list. And is that because she's in a nursing home and not in a family home or ICFDD?
Barb, I think it's good to see you too. I think I'd like to talk more with you about that because it may be some other things in play. With her being in a nursing home as to, I mean, if she has a developmental disability, has she been in communication with the Independent Service Coordination Agency in that area? And what is the status of that? So what I'd love to be able to do is get connected with you, allow me to get ROI, a release of information, to talk with her and do some investigation to see what's going on.
That would be wonderful. That'd be wonderful.
Okay, I'd love to do that. And
Okay.
again, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you, Shirley.
Absolutely.
All right, we've got a lot of questions, which is awesome. Let's try to crank through them. Bob, you're next.
Yeah, my question is, what is with the specifically the 9 years? What is the list um of people that are on the list now, and how many total are off the list already?
Okay, you want to help me, Rio? Can
Sure.
you
Bob, I don't
rephrase?
think I heard the first part of your question, but are you asking about the length of the current list?
Yeah, and how long is the list now, and how many people are off the list? Yeah, how
How,
many people are already placed?
okay, so how many people are on the list and how many people are already placed?
So how many people are on the PONS database and how many people are placed? I think that information is in the link that I gave you, but if not, Bob, I can send you a direct link. The division has a link where they do updates on the pond selection. And one of the reasons that individuals are being selected sooner than the 60 months is because the division has been doing a great job of selecting individuals. In fact, they've had multiple pond selections of individuals. We have a major one coming up in July, which is the big one, but we had two last year. We had one in March and we had one in July. So there is a link, and I can pull that up for you and send it to you, Bob. That will give you, in fact, what I'll do, Rio, I'll send it to you and you can send it out with your recording and the PowerPoint. So let me just note that. And yeah, they do a list
And
online.
the only reason I asked early is because this whole thing, this whole thing was started when Tony was in, when Tony was the director of the arc. So this has been going on for years. So I just wanted to know if there was more progress. That's all.
Bob,
Yes, there,
I'm sorry, Bob, I
yeah.
will send you these links. I'll email them to you so you can get a head start on. And then when Shirley sends the other ones, I know you like to get your hands on them right away. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm very familiar with Bob. Very familiar with Bob. And to your point, Bob, it has been progress. The issue has been the state has been meeting the 630 reasonable pace per the consent decree, but the problem has been the time frame for people getting into services and getting the services that they desire. So yes, so that's why I want to make sure I give you the most accurate, updated information. But there has been progress with the ponds. It has been decreasing, but
Thank you,
the
sir.
people actually getting into service is the concern. So thank you, sir, for that question.
Hey, Bridget, you are up next.
Thank you, Rio. Actually,
What?
it's not a question. I have a comment, if that's okay.
Please.
So I was on the Ligas for a really long time, the wait list. So I got pulled and I got home-based service. And so Now I am living in a community with supports, and that's good. I just wanted to share that because I know Shirley was talking about the Ligas degree. I went to see Stanley Ligas personally because we had a engaged thing that we had, and so we went and saw him. So I just want to let you know. So thank you.
Thanks for
Well,
that, Bridget. I did not know that about you. Sorry, Shirley.
I appreciate you, Bridget, because you confirmed what I said, that there are Ligas class members that are living in the community. And that's why it's important that we don't just always share the negative. We have to share where the progress is made and celebrate, as I said, Rio, every little victory. And so it's so good to see you, Bridget, and you darn well are doing good in the hood, okay? You're doing good.
All right, Curtis, you got the last question, then we gotta get through our old business.
Yeah, it's not a question. The comment too is that I was originally pulled from the punch list in 2012 and got initially kicked off the list before Shirley and Kimmy Johnson found a way to get me back on it because I know if I see that I have moved twice. So it's important when you move, let them know that you have moved so you can stay on the list, get services. And I also want to ask about July 8th. Can anybody show up to the court?
As far as I know, but I
Is
will
it
definitely confirm. I think it's open, but I will, she didn't say there were any restriction, but I will definitely send an email when we're done here. And
all
thank
right?
you, Curtis. I appreciate you sharing that. Again, Curtis is a living example of, we were having a know your options. And Curtis had been lost in the mix for what, 2, 3 years. And he was a class member, but he was not receiving services. And he came to the event that we had. And at that time, Kimberly was one of the family advocates. We worked together with the Independent Service Coordination Agency and the Division of Developmental Disability. And the rest is history. We were able to work. So some things are working. And as I'm depending on the Bridgets and the Curtis and all of the people here to pick this torch up and to carry it. But remember, it is something that you had on your agenda, your housekeeping. Respectful. Be respectful in all that you do because we can get more done working together respectfully than we can being angry. Angry ain't gonna do nothing but give us bad help. But when we have people like Curtis and Bridget that can testify that, good things can happen. And I want you guys to be encouraged. So thank you both, Curtis and Bridget. Amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Those were really excellent questions. And like Director Shirley said, all of the information that she provided to me, I will be passing to you guys as promptly as I can. Before we go, I just want to give a little bit of an update about our upcoming meetings and everything. First off, though, in our previous discussion last month, we had a conversation about whether or not the daytime meetings are work or sorry, the evening meetings are working for folks. And it seemed that a lot of people who regularly come to the meetings were hoping that we could have a daytime meeting. So folks who are at work, folks who are at day program, and that's the only place they have access to a computer. Maybe you eat dinner at your house, at your Scylla during our evening meetings. So we are going to kind of restructure the way that the meetings are held. So we'll continue to have every third Wednesday of the month a 6 p.m. meeting, but those meetings will be focused on education. So it'll be something similar to this discussion where we have a guest come in and they give us a little bit of information about the things that they're experts on and how it relates to the IDD system. We have the chance to ask questions. And then the fourth Thursday of each month at 10 a.m., we'll have an organizing meeting. So this is where we'll strategize on how we can get out into our community and make a real difference in our community using the information that we learn in our educational meetings. So we're going to be dropping some links in the chat to register for those. Jennifer, I think, is going to be doing that right now. And I'll also be sending all of this information out afterwards. So don't feel like you have to memorize this right now. And I'm gonna pass things over to Matthew so he can read through our upcoming meetings. Matthew, you might be muted. I can't see you.
Yeah, I was first using my mouse is not letting
Oh.
me unmute. Okay, what's coming up? We're up in Illinois on June 4th, 2026 at 6 p.m. Going Home Coalition Education Session on June 17th at 6 p.m. and Going Home Coalition Organizing Session on June 25th at 10 a.m. Uh, oh, there's more. Going Home Coalition Summer Criminal Justice Reform Sessions, ending qualified immunity, former Massey Commission, July 15 at 6 p.m. and all about political justice, Illinois Network for Political Justice, August 19th at 6 p.m. Oh, yeah. All right.
You don't have to read all of these, Matthew,
No,
if you
it's
want.
like it's like I read it and it's taking a while for it to pop up.
Oh, sorry.
It's fine. And so it's like when there's this gap, I'm like, wait, that's it? Digital Literacy Series at 10 a.m. through May, Online Safety at May 26th, and then Digital Citizenship on June 2nd. 6 p.m. starting in June, Frauds and Scams on June 9th, Internet Safety on June 16th, Online Safety on June 23rd, and Digital Citizenship on June 30th. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you again, Director Shirley. Go ahead. Shirley, you have your hand raised.
Just want to read, I want to acknowledge this, and this goes to Bob's point. Kayla, she stated, Kaylee Denny, she says, I
Yeah.
was told I was going to be pulled in the summer and got early pulled in February. Man, a whole year sooner. So, yes, there has been progress. That's what I stated, that as a result of the Ligas consent decree, working with the division, we're able to get people selected earlier. So progress is happening, and you guys are going to keep it going. So thank you, Ariel. I just appreciated that comment, and I didn't want it to go and not let everybody hear it. So progress is being made. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you again, Shirley. We're so thankful for you, not just your knowledge, but also the hard work that you do for your community. That work is well known throughout the state, but you always deserve your flowers. So thanks so much for making time for us. Bye, everyone. Have a
Bye
great
bye.
evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.